Thank you, and good morning, Minister, and thank you. I am thankful that you came here today to address this issue. I have been contacted by a number of early childcare providers for a variety of reasons over the past year, but I was alarmed to be told just last week that there is a system of withdrawing funding based on how promptly parents drop or pick up their children at the facilities. Is this the practice from Pobble, who administrate this fund, that childcare providers are being unfairly penalised for parents leaving children late or collecting early? Are we really that inflexible? A parent can be running late for an enormous amount of reasons. A parent could get off work early and want to spend quality time with their child. If money is withheld for these reasons from the provider, your department is being rather mean, Minister. The childcare staff still need to be paid, the heat, the lights still need to be paid for. Why would we have a system where the provider has to take the hit for parents needing time in their lives to spend with their children? Time is something that we are all seeing as becoming more and more precious. I would like you to clarify this and explain the thinking behind it. This kind of thing does not happen to the capitation grant in our schools, so it should not happen in our preschools. We do have a massive issue with our childcare in this country, and I am hearing it on the doors as I canvass locally in Carlow during the local elections. I think we need a massive overhaul of how this is done. In other countries, preschool and schools fall under the same umbrella. Until we classify things properly, we cannot be prepared to do the right things now to reap the benefits later. I really am eager to see what the new national childcare scheme will bring, because parents need help, providers need help, and staff need to be well paid. Early childhood education and care should be affordable and high quality, but early childhood education and care in Ireland is the second most expensive of all the OECD countries for couples, and it costs most of all in the OECD countries for single parents. We only invest in 0.2% of the GDP in childcare in this country. This is miles behind the OECD average of 0.7%, where UNICEF recommended of 1% to catch up. We need to triple our investment in childcare. Working parents spend around a fifth of their income in childcare in Ireland, 4 times more than in Sweden, and in Canada, childcare can cost as little as $10 a day. $10 a day, that's massive. We have seen significant economy changes in Ireland over the last decade. We have seen a birth spurt, we have seen a birth decline, we have seen opportunities expand and possibilities opened for families. We have seen a sea change in women's roles and men's role in Ireland, and there is no such thing as normal anymore. We are all who we are, and we all live now as we live, and we need to embrace that. It's a whole new change, Minister. It really is. It's a whole new culture. We are not, in my opinion, keeping up with these changes. It is said that politics lags behind reality by about 20 years. So it would then stand that we are investing in what was needed in 1999, but it is now 2019 and significant investment is required, significant change in fact. Providers in the EECE scheme say capitation of €69, where staff have minimum qualifications of level 5 and 6 over 38 weeks, does not come close to covering the costs in delivering the scheme. The higher capitation of €80.25 per child per week depends majorly on high standards of staff and an excessive amount of with paid experience. While the sector saw an upsurge in parents being able to send their children to this all-important stage of their education, and I know, Minister, in fairness to you, you are aware of the importance of this education, the providers suffer because they find they are constantly making up the shortfall, even going unpaid. I've had several of them say to me that they feel they are not making a wage. These providers print and process all the paperwork for the scheme at a cost to themselves. They do not get paid non-contract time when they are working on curricula, staff meetings, etc. Insurance and commercial rates and other utilities have all increased dramatically, and more work needs to be done to invest in those who provide this high-quality childcare that we are all seeking. It is wrong, I think, to make the provider pay when funding is being withdrawn for the timekeeping of parents. Carlow has one of the highest qualified percentage of early years staff in Ireland. Yet many of them cannot afford to live on the wages they are often offered, and they often find themselves that when they actually qualify, Minister, they find they actually go into another field because they find it hard to get mortgages, they find it hard that they don't get enough pay, and it is something that we need to look at. They feel that they are not getting enough money in this particular area. And I know, Minister, that I know that you are aware of this, and I do believe you will be working on it, but we need to make sure that in this employment that staff are properly paid. So, Minister, the one thing I will ask you today is, I believe that we need to ultimately look at bringing the sector under the umbrella of education so that it can be properly funded, because it does all boil down to the funding. And again, Minister, I want to thank you for coming in today. It is a massive issue. I'm a parent myself. I see myself how people are struggling between mortgages and paying childcare, and it is getting harder. So maybe you could come back to me on this. And thank you, Minister, and thank you, Cathaoirleach.
Minister. Thank you, Cathaoirleach and Senator. Assisting families to access high-quality, affordable early learning and care and school-age childcare is a priority for me as Minister. You will be aware, and your colleagues, other senators, that investment in childcare has increased by an unprecedented 117% over the last 4 budgets, and it now totals €575 million. This funds a number of early learning and care and school-age childcare programs, and I want to see investment in this area continue to increase significantly over the coming years. So I'm in agreement with you, Senator. I'm delighted that First 5, the whole-of-government strategy for babies, young children and their families, commits to doubling investment over the next 10 years. And given the significant amount of public money invested in these programs, there needs to be an appropriate level of oversight and accountability. I believe that my department's approach to protecting exchequer funding and ensuring compliance with program rules is balanced appropriately with the supports that we also provide to services to enable them to continue to deliver a sustainable and high-quality service. Pobal, as administrator of my department's funded childcare programs, conducts compliance visits to childcare service providers. These visits check a service's compliance with the published rules of exchequer-funded programs. Results from Pobal compliance visits for the first part of the program year 2018-2019 show a significant level of non-compliance, and this needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency. In particular, many childcare services have been found to be in breach of program rules concerning attendance records and registrations. Subsidies for the early learning and care and school-age childcare programs are based on actual attendance. Attendance rules and their application do not penalize parents who occasionally pick up or drop off children early. Pobal, when determining a pattern of attendance during a compliance visit, aim to apply the rules in a manner which maximizes the amount payable to providers. Non-compliance with attendance rules represents a risk to exchequer funds, as it can lead to services receiving funding in excess of their entitlement. So for this reason, my department, working with Pobal, identify incorrect registrations and apply the relevant corrections to ensure that services are receiving the correct level of funding. This is an important protection for the significant public funding invested in these programs. But I recognize fully the challenges that can be faced by services where incorrect registrations have been discovered, and that's why my department has developed a strong case management system operated by Pobal, through which a dedicated team assists services facing challenges. This case management service provides non-financial assistance or support in the first instance, and is currently focusing on engaging those providers with an identified overclaim. Community services can access a budget I have created to assist them to transition in a manageable way towards sustainability. And I'm encouraged that the majority of services engage constructively with the compliance process, and I'd recommend any services to get in contact with Pobal or their local city, county childcare committee if they need support or advice. The existing targeted childcare schemes, though, will be replaced later this year with the National Childcare Scheme. I think the Senator is aware of that. The National Childcare Scheme was developed based on the evidence of the best interests of children and family, and its attendance rules will reflect the reality of children and parents' lives and the needs for services to operate as businesses. The National Childcare Scheme will mark another significant milestone for early learning and care and school-age childcare in this country, creating an infrastructure from which government can further increase investment in services over the next decade.
Brief supplementary, Senator.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for your reply. And again, I would just ask that a balance is found here, because for parents and for the providers of childcare, we have excellent providers, but we have parents too that have circumstances through no control of their own, and they shouldn't be penalised. But the The providers shouldn't be penalised. So we need a balance, and I understand there has to be accountability. That's across all walks of whatever business or whatever provider it is. But I'm just asking you that leniency be given, and it is frightening people to know what is happening now, because this is kind of a big thing now, and you know yourself. Things happen in certain times that you can't account for or whatever. So it has to be a balance, and I do understand, Minister, that you have said in this that there is leniency there. I think that needs to be told, and I think when there's a good reason that needs to be accepted, because there's great parents out there like there is great providers, childcare providers.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. May I?
Yes.
Thank you, Senator. Absolutely, there's great parents and great providers out there, and I think in terms of specifically the question that you asked, what I'm stating clearly is that if there is any non-compliance that's found by Pobble, it does not have to do with the parents dropping children off later or earlier or anything like that. It's irrelevant to another system. It's in terms of which providers have guidelines, etc. on. That's the first thing I'm saying. Secondly, if they are found to be non-compliant, that Pobble and my department work closely with them to support a way in which they can move beyond that. And then the third thing I'm saying, I think, is with the National Childcare Scheme, which is coming on stream pretty soon, as you know, we're taking a different approach to the ways in which we ensure that children are attending, and I think you'll find that we'll have more flexibility and yet still accountability, but more flexibility in terms of the lives of parents and children as we move into the future. So thank you, Senator.